Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Book of Grudges. My name is Nathan and today we're going to actually do something a little bit different. You see, we're going to be talking about Warhammer the Old World. Surprise, surprise, this is a topic I cover regularly, but I've honestly been seeing a lot of posts, comments, and what have you on various different websites saying that the old world is going to be dead on arrival. Which is a little bit strange considering we know next to nothing about Warhammer the Old World just yet, but I understand the frustration that people do have. Obviously, we have to take into account that there has not been a lot of news in a while, and the hypothesized release date of around October or November is getting closer and closer, yet they seem to get distracted and announce/release other things, despite the fact that we already kind of knew that Epic was coming anyway. There's been leaks left, right, and center, as someone in Games Workshop HQ does seem to have quite loose lips. Now, this video isn't meant to be like a negative thing, it's actually more going over what people's concerns have been and just kind of discussing them, because I'll be very honest with you, some of these concerns have in fact been very valid. Maybe Games Workshop will actually eventually, hopefully, there's a lot of words that you have to put in there, but you never know, they could actually be paying attention. I know for a fact there's a few Games Workshop staff members that do watch my videos. Hey guys, I'm not trying to be negative here, but I just want to discuss this, so yeah, let's just jump right in. A lot of things I see being complained about is the fact that it got announced in 2019 and we've still not really seen too much concrete information. Yes, they did originally state that we weren't going to see this game for a long time. Years, they stated in the announcement blog, but it did seem like it was a very rushed announcement. A lot of people have actually pointed out that, well, it could have been just to kind of take attention away from one of their competitors. You see, Kings of War at that point were getting close to announce, or had just announced, their 3rd edition. This is something which might have ticked off Games Workshop a little bit, considering that a lot of ex-Games Workshop staff members after the fall of the End Times had moved on to Mantic. It wasn't just the End Times, by the way, it was a lot of reasons. I've heard a few reasons from ex-staff members. I won't go over it because I don't want to put anyone in trouble, but the fact is, Games Workshop during that time were not really that great of a company. Well, you guys all know well enough, there was a certain person who was basically running Games Workshop into the ground, and apparently some people just honestly didn't want to be around for that, which kind of makes sense. There were a lot of problems with Games Workshop when a certain jackass was in charge. Sorry, but I honestly do wonder sometimes what company he's running nowadays. Yeah, let's just keep him over there and as far away from us as possible, shall we? But heading back from the diversion, yes, Games Workshop shouldn't really have announced Warhammer the Old World in 2019. If anything, it should have been announced closer to the release of Total War Warhammer 3. That would have allowed for better marketing, which we're going to talk about it in just a little bit, and not the, oh yeah, you're getting information, then you're not getting information. And it was so sporadic that a lot of people by the end of the 1st and 2nd year had already started to lose interest. I don't blame you guys, but that could have definitely been avoided. Now we're going to move on to the marketing, because this one is a big one. Not only has it been sporadic and inconsistent, it's just generally been plain bad. Firstly, they started off with map updates with some lore, which was great, but again, it was once every 3 months sometimes, 4 months, sometimes even 5 months. Obviously, yes, they were building and painting the new world map for the Warhammer Fantasy World, but it would have been nice if they would have just given a map update every month at the very least, you know, keep people interested, explain certain things about the lore as to why people should actually be excited. We all know that they had locked down the Time of Three Emperors for a while now, gave us map updates for the factions, but didn't really confirm the actual setting until much, much later on, which for people like myself and many of you watching this videos, not too much of a problem, but for the newer people, you know, those who might not know the lore too much, well, they were kind of left in the dark, having to go onto YouTube videos. Don't get me wrong, I kind of like that because it benefits me as a YouTuber, but it doesn't really benefit the fan base as a whole, does it? Especially since YouTubers like myself don't know what is actually happening. Lore is going to change for sure. We've already seen some changes in the lore, and we know that from the articles. Again, needing content creators or people very, very well versed with the lore to explain, oh, this looks a little bit different, this has been moved. We're thankfully getting more updates now on a monthly basis, and I do imagine that after the re-release of Epic, or whatever they're calling it right now, I've honestly forgotten the new name, we'll start to get weekly posts for sure, and then it'll slowly go to daily as it gets closer to release. I am still very certain that it's happening this year, but it's going to be a while. Even then, the marketing hasn't been great. We've seen a new miniature, yes, the BSB for the Bretonnians, which is pretty cool. A new battle standard is awesome, but it's not a new unit, it's just an updated unit. They could have said that rather than, oh look, it's new. Because I know people were disappointed as they had expectations that they wanted to see something new, a new unit that we've never had before. And we do need to talk about one specific marketing beat, which was pretty abysmal, if I may say so myself. You see, during Warhammer Fest, there was a Q&A session. It was not actually shown to you guys. The reveal was, which was a updated Tomb King and an updated Paladin, which, by the way, they're very, very cool. Very big fan of the look. But the Q&A session was behind closed doors. And the problem that happened there is a lot of influencers would be screaming when they misheard stuff and doing their usual posts and stuff, getting stuff wrong because apparently they don't want to listen properly, and then have the audacity to ask you for a coffee. Yeah, that's always great. So yeah, when the misinformation went out, what happened? Yeah, a lot of people got angry, and for obvious reasons. As far as you're aware, there was not going to be a launch box, for example. Even though, like, people like myself and others had been saying Bretonnians and Tomb Kings for the past, I want to say 2 years at this point, but yeah. There's definitely going to be more big reveals before this happens, and it's going to be via events. How many Q&A sessions are being missed that have valuable information? It's not ideal when it's been 8 years since the death of Warhammer Fantasy, and obviously it's been 4 years since the announcement. So yeah, we want to know as much information as possible, and from an official source. I'm not an official source. I tried my best and I got as much as I could for my video, but not everyone is going to see my video. I mean, just saying, if you want to, you can subscribe right below. I keep you up to date with all Warhammer the Old World news. Just a little plug there. But even then, I'd still prefer, like, more information coming from Games Workshop. Then we had some information regarding models, and this turned everyone into a frenzy, which is kind of understandable. So we were told, plastic, great. That's a lot of stuff that everyone expects, especially since we're getting a lot of old miniatures. Plastic is obviously the main form of miniatures when it comes to Warhammer in general, and everyone was happy. Then it was resin miniatures, which a lot of people were kind of divided on. You see, when it comes to a specialist game, like, say, for example, Warhammer 30k, resin is a big part of it. Eventually, it's been phasing out for some plastic, but I imagine that they're going to be doing the same thing here, where we're going to get a few resin things here and there, and if Old World does well, then they'll start to phase it out too. I'm imagining that they're not sure if it's going to sell or not because, well, the marketing kind of shows that they're not really going all in with something that could potentially be something pretty huge, right? But the biggest surprise was the return of metal miniatures. Yeah, not keen on that. You see, back in the days of Old Hammer and Mid Hammer, your characters in some units would be metal instead of plastic. That was eventually replaced by the atrocity that we know as Finecast, and to be fair, if the choice was Finecast or metal, I would go with metal, because Finecast was just severely flawed, but metal had its problems too. This is miniatures that would chip easily, that would be hard to work with, hard to glue sometimes because some bits were just way too heavy. You actually had to pin stuff to keep it up and keep it from falling apart. It was actually very, very common. Actually, if some of you remember the old metal miniature, which I think they still sell in metal, the troll for the Lord of the Rings set for the Balanced Tomb stuff, yeah, that one was super annoying. No amount of super glue could hold that, and when you're a young kid, you're not able to actually, well, pin stuff. You needed someone else to do it because it was dangerous. Obviously, that's not much of the case now because I'm in my 30s, but, it's one of those things that it isn't great. Nobody wants to deal with metal miniatures. Nobody wants to deal with Finecast either, so hopefully the metal ones aren't too much. I imagine that there's a lot of stock of stuff, because if they're casting metal again, I don't know, it just feels kind of, well, I'm just going to outright say it. It's going to be crap. A lot of people aren't going to really enjoy it, especially if you're new, if you've just been into Total War Warhammer and you want to get into Warhammer Fantasy. Yeah, metal miniatures aren't great. Don't get me wrong, resin isn't either. It's better now than it used to be, but still, plastic would have been ideal for everything, to be honest. Now, people are also a little bit disillusioned with the fact that we're only getting 9 core factions at launch. Now, one thing to note here, and this is something which people seem to be misreading, this doesn't mean that other factions such as the Dark Elves, the Demons of Chaos, the Chaos Dwarfs, and all the others are not getting rules. They are in fact going to get live PDF rules, so anything does need to be changed and so on, that will actually just be updated online. The only thing is that they're not getting army books in this wave. Well, the fact is that they're not getting any new miniatures for the time being too. So I know a lot of people are a bit angry with that. New miniatures are the way for you to be able to get more invested, especially if you're an old school player, which, yeah, I understand. It's not ideal. You don't want to play with the old stuff that you've basically had for the last, well, it depends, sometimes even 20 years, you know? Now, something like this was also mentioned during the Q&A session. Again, a reason why the marketing has been terrible, mostly because, yes, they're not getting rules through a army book, the other factions will be, but they will be getting rules properly in Wave 2, you know, an army book. That's what people want. They want the fancy hardback covers. But more communication for that would have been nice, in all honesty. I know there's a lot of people who play Skaven. I play Skaven, for example. Dark Elves, because they were terrifying in 8th edition. They want to know when they're getting fancy new stuff. The most important thing would be just some honesty. Just say, listen, can't do every single faction for launch, and yeah, we're going to do them eventually if sales progress. Or, you know, just say Wave 2, if that's something that they're confident with, which I imagine that they must be working on Wave 2 stuff now, if Wave 1 is going to come out this year. It's a big issue considering that many of us were expecting Cafe and Kislev at launch, considering that they were announced and confirmed so long ago. But they said Kislev, again in the Q&A by the way, Kislev was a little bit ways off and Cafe was even more so. With all that being discussed, and there's likely more that I've missed, I understand why some people are kind of worried. Believe me, I do. Because some of those fears are fears that I have too. The only thing is, I'm trying to stay in the more optimistic side, and I think that you all should too, because we've not seen the rules, we've not seen what they have planned just yet. It's very, very easy to do manga for it, but I would say that I think time will tell, and I think we just have to wait until they start doing some proper previews. Right now, the main thing is Games Workshop's marketing is as awful as ever. It's one of those things that is never really going to change. It's gotten better, but it's still pretty abysmal. I don't think there's a reason to fear. We've already seen some of the devs who are attached to this project as they've done some interviews and Games Workshop has publicized them and so on. They're pretty old, but those are big names in Warhammer Fantasy, so I do have a little bit of hope that this is going to be good. And I don't mean like big names in Warhammer Fantasy, just like 8th edition, I mean earlier editions, the good ones, like 6th. Or they've worked on good products from the other Warhammer IPs, and it's all been pretty good. I'm honestly going to wait and see. I still have my defenses up. I'm casually optimistic though, because at the end of the day, we're finally getting something. We're getting information. Just the little bit of confirmation that 20 mil bases are gone was enough for me to be able to start working on my armies, which has been nice. It's been nostalgic actually picking up some stuff from the pile of shame, which I haven't painted. The main thing about this video was just to talk about the casual doomsaying that's going on in various different groups. Just say, guys, we haven't actually seen the game yet. Chill. Like, seriously, chill. I've seen so many people arguing and insulting each other just for basic questions. It's actually kind of funny on how people get mad for pretty much no reason. Seriously. If it's good, it's good. Great. You know, we can all enjoy ourselves. We can all have a lot of fun. If it's bad, I mean, we can just go back to 8 for 8.5, unofficial 9th, WAP. They're not actually gone. They're going to continue. It's just they can't use the artwork and fluff. But the rules will still be there. Go back to 6th. Go back to your homebrews, you know? We're fine. They can't change what we already have, so you don't have to worry too much about it. And before you say, well, you know, the rebasing issue and so on, if I were you, just don't rebase miniatures. Wait until you get there, or get some base extenders that you can easily plop in your miniatures too. I know I'm going to have some angry comments in the comment section anyway, because that's what Warhammer fans do. But yeah, let me know you guys' thoughts in the comments below. Let's have a bit of a discussion, a proper discussion. Don't start attacking each other, because yeah, leave that cringe for the Facebook group. Have a good day, guys, and I'll see you all again very, very soon.